Welcome to the Not in the Job Description podcast. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
And I'm Chris Kiernan.
No matter what type of job you've had, there were situations that happened to you during work that you couldn't wait to tell your friends about.
We interview a variety of guests about some of their crazy stories from work, from entry-level food service industry jobs to doctors and attorneys. We will explore funny, gross, embarrassing, scary, and sometimes almost unbelievable stories that people have experienced while on the job.
Keep in mind that our guests or the companies they work for may be masked in order to protect the innocent, or maybe even the guilty. On today's show, we're going to talk to Rocky, who is a process server. Welcome, Rocky.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing well. So before we get into the depths of serving papers to people, I just wanted to ask you, what was your first job? I mean, what led you into this type of business?
Everything. I mean, my very first job was selling newspapers, and I think selling corn dogs at Wyandotte Lake. But everything I think I've done in life has led up to this. I've worked collections for a bank. I've repoed cars. Worked with Chris at a local foreclosure company. Sold real estate-owned property, foreclosed property as a real estate agent, and just seems like everything I've ever done in life. I was also owned a marketing company, training company. Just everything came to fruition with this. And they say when you do what you love, it's not work. And I'm really good. And you can ask Chris, I'm really good at making people mad.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Chris excels at that pretty well, too.
Right. I try. So all this led up to your current then profession and your current company. So RVB Services, is that correct?
Yeah, LLC.
All right.
RVB Services, LLC. I was told by legal counsel I have to put that on there.
So people don't go after your house?
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
good.
Exactly.
So how long have you been in this particular business then?
Funny you ask. 2 years this week I've been doing this.
Okay. Well, and maybe a lot of people don't understand what a process server does. Can you give us kind of the rundown of what is this job?
So basically, in a nutshell, I bless people with knowledge that they're involved in pending litigation. I'm that guy that uses that proverbial term, "you've been served."
Oh, they've got to be happy as hell to see you.
There's been a few. There's actually been a few. I actually had one woman, I got the work order, and they said she was bipolar and that she was prone to violence and that I should be careful going to the door. And I go up as a late summer day, early evening, and I go up to the door and knock, and she comes to the door and she looks at me and she goes, "Are you the process server?" And I go, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Those are my divorce papers?" I go, "Yes, ma'am." She flails the door open, jumps up on me, and just hugs me and wraps her legs around me. Now, if you know anything about me, a few years ago, I was in a nursing home, had some toes removed and some bones removed in both feet. And I sat there and I said, "Lady, you better drop right now because we're about both ready to go down. You don't want Fat Boy landing on you." But she was really excited to see me and that I had her divorce papers on me. So,
I do have to ask you, why is it that a process server is needed? It seems to me like, a lot of things just happen pretty straightforward in the mail, or you can get registered mail, those kinds of things. Tell me about why somebody would use a process server.
Well, in the United States, the Constitution guarantees there's no such thing as a secret court. So everybody has the right to know that they're part of litigation, that somebody's sued them, or that you're being questioned as a witness. So it is a constitutional civic duty that I am performing to protect your need to know. You need to know this is happening, because we came out of England, and England, you had secret courts. You had secret courts in various countries around the world too. So that's basically what a process server does. Now, yeah, you can send something certified mail, but just because you send it certified mail doesn't mean the person's going to sign for that certified mail. They may reject it. You may have a bad address. Recently, due to the pandemic, a lot of stuff just came back marked COVID-19, and that definitely wasn't considered good service, so you could proceed with your lawsuit.
Oh, absolutely. That makes sense. I'm just curious. when you start, by the way, let me just preface this. I'm pretty boring. Like, I haven't been involved in any lawsuits yet. Can we knock on wood here? Who
I've
knows?
got a cease and desist order for you.
I know it's coming eventually, but we even do what we can to cover ourselves here with our own LLC. But, I'm just curious, when you talk to people, do you find out pretty quickly how many of them are really avoiding this versus how many of them this is just part of the process where you have to deliver it to them?
I get lied to quite a bit by people. And what a lot of people don't realize is before I even come to your door, I've looked, and boy, I shouldn't be giving a trade secret away here. I've looked you up. People send me pictures of who I'm serving. They give me your car make, model, license plate number. A lot of times they know your schedule in various cases. So I know quite a bit about you before I come up to the door. And I always love it when you lie to me, and I've got your picture right there on my cell phone. And I go, "This you?" You get that Beavis and Butthead laugh. Yeah, here you go. And I don't throw papers. I'm not that kind of a jerk.
Are you a different kind of jerk then?
I'm a nice jerk.
Okay.
I won't throw the papers at you, but I'll lay them at your feet. And I hate to say you've been served, but in cases like that, I do get a little satisfaction out of saying that term and turn around and walk away.
So I follow you on your Facebook page there. And
I'm sorry.
And I know there's times that you're kind of camping out almost. You're in your car, and you're making little videos just to kill the time. What is one of the strangest places that you've tracked somebody down to serve them?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Where's the strangest place? The strip joints. There's Old Rocky and there's New Rocky.
I've known both.
Yeah, you've known both. Old Rocky used to partake in those places quite a bit. I'm ashamed to say, and if my pastor's listening, I got a serve about a year ago, and I did let my pastor know that I was going into the strip club. I called him before I went in and called him before I came out.
When you walked in, did they say, "Hey, Rocky"?
No, it'd been a while since I'd been into them, so they didn't know me, thank goodness. Although I once was engaged to a dancer. But
that'll be another episode for sure.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But I walked in, waited a few moments. I kept myself out in the little foyer area where you didn't get to see a lot of the action, and they had the dancer come out. She accepted the service, and I went about my business. And I called my pastor after I was done. He goes, "You didn't stay and lay hands on anybody, did you?" I'm like, "No, sir, I did not do that."
So when you have to serve people, do you know roughly what the situation is, or is your job really just to deliver and confirm?
I am a glorified mail carrier,
Okay.
is what I'm basically am. I do not go into the documents. I know what documents I'm supposed to serve. Sometimes I do get some of the background, but I'm supposed to be a third party. I'm not on either side. Yeah, this person may be paying me. All I'm there is to be a third-party witness to say, this is what I did, this is who I gave it to, and fill out an affidavit and send it back to the court.
So you bring up an interesting point, and I'm sure that, because I didn't know this, and I'm sure the listeners probably don't, who actually pays you then? Is it the court that's paying you, or is it the other side of the lawsuit person?
It is
how does that work?
Whoever needs the service to be perfected. So if I can work for a plaintiff or a defendant. So whoever filed the motion that needs to be served, that's the person paying me.
I got you. So it's not the court per se; it's the other party of the lawsuit.
Yeah, very seldom is it the court. I am an agent of the court. The court. I do have the authority of the court behind me to serve these papers, but it's not the court itself. But it does get calculated through the action. There's fees and stuff that get shown, and that does show up in the expenses, from what I understand, in a lot of jurisdictions.
So you mentioned that in a recent or a memorable case that you knew this person maybe was bipolar or had some issues. Do you normally get some kind of a document that says you have to serve this? And by the way, this person is a known felon or known to have weapons, or do you get a background if there's in case there's anything that might be dangerous or anything like that?
I ask all my clients to send me all information that they have. Some cases they've got a whole list of information. They know everything from the hair color to the birth date to the shoe size. And I know it sounds a little extreme there, but I have gotten that information before. to where like I don't know anything about this person except for a case a couple months ago I served a truck driver. All they had was what was on the on his license that was taken. That was part of the citation. Is a injury case, and all I knew was what on that driver's license. So sometimes I get information like that. Sometimes I don't. I mean, you can't ever sit there and say something is going to be a standard case to where you go up to the door. Every situation's different, but there's always that intrinsic danger with going up to a door.
Now, do you have a time frame that you have to deliver these things, or is this more like you're the bounty hunter and it's until you get it done?
So with one of three things is going to happen. And usually I try to wrap everything up in 2 weeks, depending on the priority you put. If you put it on a high priority, which, comes with a higher fee, I try to wrap that up in 6 days. If you're doing just standard service, I make an attempt every couple days and wrap it up in 2 weeks. I give up to 4 diligent attempts, one in the morning between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m., one in the evening between 6 and 9, sometimes on Saturday, and we have that fourth one out there. So the first thing, service isn't guaranteed, but it's always my goal to serve somebody on that first try. If that doesn't happen, I make those other diligent attempts. Or if I don't get them, you're going to have very good documentation of who I spoke to, cars that I saw there with the make, model, license plate number, was the yard mode, lights on. Did I talk to the postal employee? Did I talk to a neighbor? Did I talk to an apartment manager? And then the third scenario is I'm going to have you very credible information that there's no reasonable expectation for service to be obtained at this address. Say it's a house and an apartment, and I've got information that our subject moved, our subject's incarcerated is another common thing, or if it's at a place of employment I'm trying to serve somebody, they no longer work there.
Now, do you get compensated either way?
I charge a flat fee, so
Okay.
Yes, I'm paid the same whether I get them on the first attempt or if I do all 4 attempts. Now, mind you, I always want to get them on the first attempt.
Sure, yeah. The other question I had, you'd mentioned you'd been in the collection business. I have been in the collection business as well, and I know that there are very strict regulations around collections, and you can't call people after a certain time frame. You have to make sure you're in the right time zone, and there's all kinds of things that happen. Are there regulations around how you can serve people?
You've got thousands of courts in the United States, in each jurisdiction, each state, even on the federal level, they all have different rules. Now, mind you, I don't know all the rules, so I have to rely on my client quite a bit. But in the state of Ohio, I can serve anybody that's over the age of 16, anytime, day or night, 7 days a week, doesn't matter if it's a holiday or not. Now, state of Texas, I can't serve on Sundays and holidays, which is funny because foreclosure, you got this thing called Texas Tuesday, and they will sell homes on Veterans Day in November.
Right.
You remember that, Chris?
Yeah, it was the first Tuesday of every month.
First Tuesday of every month. So I kind of found it funny that Texas kind of has, you can't serve on Sundays and you can't serve on holidays. So I get a lot of low-level criminal stuff that I serve for the state of Texas, which when that happens, I wear the cowboy hat. I've even served stuff from Canada and from the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's fun. That's on a former employer that I served that too, by the way.
Did you exit that employer well?
I believe I did, but funny thing is that the day that I went to serve this used to be, during the pandemic, I'd wear a black mask and a black ball cap during the winter, and I knew a person in the mailroom, and she would come in and let me accept it, and she'd accept it, and I'd go about my business, move on. Well, she'd left, and the manager just didn't care for me to be in there to do this, and I did what was called a drop serve on him. I knew who he was, so he was personally known to me, so there's no trying to guess who he was. And he told me to leave, and I said, okay, well, fine, here's your papers, and I laid him down at his feet, and he kicked them at me, and it hit me in the leg, and he came over, and I'm like, don't you touch me, dude. I mean, he's getting ready to grab me inside our former employer, which is one of the largest mortgage servicers in the U.S.
Right.
And I'm like, don't touch me, man. And he's yelling at me, screaming. He's screaming at security, don't you ever let this MFer in here again. Look at him. Get a good look at him. I had my face mask on.
Right.
And a skull cap on. I sat there and I put my hands up in the air and I said, yeah, get a good look at me. Make sure you remember this face as I walked out. And he's like, I'm going to call the police. I turned around. I said, oh, please, let's do this. I go, I'd love to tell the cops how you just kicked papers on me and gave me a paper cut on my leg. It's not going to bode well for you. And he just kind of ate a little crow and went back into his office and sulked as I walked away.
So, I kind of touched on this, but what percentage of the people you're serving are in avoidance mode, do you think?
I'm going to toot my own horn here. I like to say that I get most everybody I go after.
But are they avoiding these papers?
There are some people that avoid. I make note when I believe I've been watched through a window. I love the Ring doorbell system. When somebody doesn't answer, you can tell that you've been watched. I'll sit there and say hello. People will watch me through cameras, and I'll wave at the cameras. I look at the cameras, tip my hat to the camera, wave. I leave a little yellow callback card, and I'll write it out to leave on their door, and I'll point at it, and I'll give the little, with my fingers, call me sign, looking at the camera. There's a good percentage that do know why you're there, and they do try to avoid you. It's not a lot because I think I'm a little more assertive to the way I approach service, that after a while you're just going to be sick of seeing me come to your house and knocking on the door. I don't just knock once. I'm going to knock here. So, I'll be like, there's my first knock. I'll ring the doorbell. Second knock. I'm knocking like that, third knock, getting a little louder, fourth knock, getting even louder. And that fifth knock, I'm doing the police knock, banging on your door. So, if you're inside hiding from me, and I love it when dogs start barking when I knock, because I'll wait for the dogs to quiet down and I'll just start beating on that door again to wind them up. Like I said, I'm a bit of a jerk.
But you're a nice jerk.
I'm a nice jerk.
Yeah. I read some interesting process server stories. There were some on Reddit, and one of them says, one guy really hated this other lady he was suing, and she kept avoiding the server, so he paid me $300 to serve her on Christmas Day.
Oh,
he knew for sure she was home because she was having a party there in an hour, so he wrapped up this huge present. I showed up at her door and yelled, "Christmas delivery," and she thought it was some great present and had this huge smile. Once she opened the door, I told her she had been served, and it was like she got hit by a brick wall. She just silently took the giant present inside and walked into her house. I thought,
Nice.
man, that's got to be somebody really trying to avoid being served, but that's a little rough. I mean, when you have to track somebody down that bad.
That's awesome. I there's only a couple holidays I'll serve on. I take Christmas off, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. I've got kids. I work 6 days a week. I want a day off every so often. But I have, and I don't normally do this, but there's a restaurant owner here in town who was avoiding service. And he, all the time, he'd have his staff come out and say, he's not here, he's not available, he's not here. So I waited a couple weeks. So, they weren't really remembering me. I was hoping I'd walk in and out. So I went and bought a nice sized box, big old brown box. It was empty. I had the papers underneath it. I walked in and I'm like, hey, is he here? And they're like, you could tell. I knew each time he was there. They're like, what do you got? I've got this box I'm supposed to deliver to him. Well, can you leave? No, it's my instructions. I got to give them to him directly. So they went back in the back, and a couple minutes later, he comes out, and I go, you Joe Blow? And he goes, yeah. I go, here you go. You got divorce papers from Cleveland. Have a great day. Walked out. He wasn't too pleased. I think he screamed something at me as I walked out. That was a fun day.
So when you're going to serve somebody, maybe it's in a public setting, there's a lot of people around, maybe they work in a mall or wherever. Do you try to be discreet, or is it you just kind of go in guns blazing like, Rocky's here, you've been served?
Like if I was to go to a mall steakhouse and try to serve somebody.
People are too busy eating, but go ahead.
Yeah. I try to be discreet. I will use discretion in the vast majority of my serves. If you've gotten to the point, I give back to what you give. So you escalate it. I'm not here to embarrass you. But if you want to make a big stink that you're getting served, that's on you, I'll call people out. I love calling people out. I think we already discussed that. I'll call you out all day long. and walk away. I mean, but in the essence of stuff, I just want to get in and I want to get out without getting shot at or kicked at or spit at or chased down on a lawnmower.
So have you ever been in a situation where you really felt like, holy crap, I am in danger here?
I've been shot at.
Have you really?
I was at a door, mealy-mouthed coward. It was my third time there. I'd left a card. He had cameras all over the place. He knew I was there. Funny thing is they were trying to enforce a judgment where they were giving him a large sum of money. And he peeked out of his second-story window and took 3 shots at me. And somebody in the house that was living there said, oh, he was shooting at raccoons. Backed him up. I didn't see him actually shoot at me, but when I'm standing on your front porch and you're in the second-story window right there directly to my left, less than 20 yards away from me, and you hear pop, 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 it scared the crap.
Yeah.
I ain't
Lucky for you, he's
yeah.
a bad shot, right?
Yeah, lucky. My back went directly towards the door, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, holy crap, I'm going to get shot at in my back.
And this is somebody, did I hear you right, that he actually had money coming to him?
He had money coming to him.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's a coward. He's a jerk. Instead of coming facing to the door, all I was wanting to do is just hand the papers to you. I wasn't going to do anything else except say, hey, I gave them to you. But this coward just, instead of answering the door like a man,
So he's that mean jerk that we were going to talk about.
He's a coward. He's
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, he's a coward. So I was there for a peaceful purpose within the law, protecting his right to know that, hey, these people are trying to enforce a judgment against you. And he just wanted to be a grade A-hole, took a few shots, got his rocks off on it. I hope he enjoyed himself watching me walk out with my hands up. I hope he really got his jollies from being that big of a jerk and a coward, because guys like that, I saw his rap sheet after that. It's just like, man, you're a sad person.
Yeah, maybe not too surprising after you saw his rap sheet. Now, you'd mentioned that you do a lot of serving for the courts and criminal cases and things like that. Do you often run across scenarios where you think it is going to get violent? Or I know you got shot at. Have you ever been in any physical altercations?
So I don't serve a lot of criminal. And when I do serve criminal, it's very low-level stuff, nonviolent stuff. But still, there's always that chance there. I wasn't even serving this guy. I was serving the person that lived with him. He was on a lawnmower. And he said that the person lived there. I'm like, well, what's your name? He goes, I'm not telling you. I go, okay, well, here, you've been served. She's been served. Laid the papers down on the lawnmower. He takes them, throws them on the ground, runs over the lawnmower, and starts chasing after me on the lawnmower.
I would have done that.
Yeah. So as I'm walking away, and Fat Boy don't run, I'm missing some toes. So, weebles wobbles, and this one will fall. But I'm walking back to my car very, very with a purpose. And he's on, God, I hope he had that in high gear as he was chasing after me in the lawnmower. And you never park in a person's driveway. You always park alongside the road. You never park head in first. That way, if you have to go in reverse, you've got 2 outs versus 1. So I'm on the long side of the road. I'm in my car, and he parks his lawnmower in front of me. And then he sees that I'm not going to go forward, and I start to back up, and he comes around to the side, and he's in the street, and I had my window down as late summer, early fall. And I can only imagine what he was saying to me as I heard, F this, you piece of that. And I looked at him, and I started reaching down in between my seat. And I'm not going to give away all my trade secrets, but I am never. You may kick my butt. I will get my butt kicked, but you're going to walk away saying that was the dumbest decision you ever made, because I may go down, but I don't go down easily. And as he's sitting there, I go, buddy, I'm under court order to be here. You're in a public street. You're blocking me from leaving. I go, do you really want to see how this is going to end? And he said something else and took off on the lawnmower, and I took off like a bat out of hell.
Yeah, there's no point in egging that on.
I try not to escalate, but just that guy was he was begging for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sharing some stories around the job of process server because I'll be honest, I know the term because just growing up and on TV and things, the "you've been served" kind of thing was on. It was almost like a TV thing all the time.
Yeah.
But I really didn't know what all the job entailed. And as I was just doing some research, did you guys know that there are 2 movies about process servers at least?
Pineapple Express is one, which I'm always. Have you
That's
seen
true.
Pineapple Express? No, I have not.
Well, yeah, and if people don't know, Pineapple Express was done in 2008
Yep.
with Seth Rogen, and the plot centers on a process server and his marijuana dealer as they're forced to flee from hitmen and corrupt police officers. So pretty much like your everyday thing.
Yeah, I see that happening.
There is another movie which just coincidentally my wife and I watched, during the whole COVID time, and it's called Serving Sarah. And it stars Matthew Perry and Elizabeth Hurley. And Matthew Perry is the process server who has to serve divorce papers to Elizabeth Hurley's character by her philandering Texas husband. So she makes an offer to the process server that sends them on a wild trip across the country. This one was not considered a great movie. Most Rotten Tomatoes scores had it at about 4%. That's right, 4%. But the audience, they really liked it a lot more. They were a little more forgiving at 26%. But Pineapple Express was like The Godfather compared to that.
Yes.
It is a Rotten Tomatoes score of 68 from the critics and 73 from the audience. But I think what's funny sometimes when you bring up Pineapple Express, people are like, oh yeah, the stoner movie. They don't, process server isn't even in it, even though it was kind of an interesting part of the movie. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that just that the job of process server, I don't think people think of it very much. And maybe that's good news because maybe they're not needing to be served.
Possibly. I mean, like I said, it's a very important job. There's no secret courts. And a lot of people that do know of Pineapple Express, they're like, oh, so you're like that guy in Seth Rogen. No, I'm not. I really do hate this. You've been served is so cliche. And
Yes. Yeah.
Like I said, the only time I say that is when you've been a jerk to me. And I just kind of want to rub some salt in the wound.
Right.
So that's about it. But usually it's just like, hey, I've got some documents here for you from the Delaware County Clerk of Courts. It's a summons and complaint. Here you go. Have a great day. Good luck. Best wishes. And I turn around, walk away, and pray to God that somebody's not getting ready to shoot me in the back.
So when you first started, was your very first serve, were you kind of jacked up and all excited and like, oh my God, what am I getting ready to do? Or did you not even really realize it because you hadn't been shot at yet and you hadn't been ran over by a lawnmower yet?
Well, my very first serve was so lame. I served a statutory agent. In the state of Ohio, when you're a business, you have to have a statutory agent registered with the state of Ohio because that's who has to receive summons and complaints and legal documents when your company gets served. And there's a company that was downtown Columbus. That's all they did was they took summons and complaint. And so I went and walked in, and the woman sitting there, I had no clue what I was doing, to be honest with you. And she goes, yes, can I help you? I go, I'm here to serve this company. And she goes, just leave it out there. Okay, well, I'm supposed to get your name and title. And she told me her name, her title, and she was really annoyed that I was there. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is my first serve ever. I got to know her after a while because I see her almost every day. Great person, and actually gave her a Christmas card last year. I was thinking about getting her a mug with my logo on it. Haven't decided yet. I hope she doesn't listen. But yeah, that was pretty lame. The first time I walked up to a house, though, like I said, I repoed cars. I was in collections. Used a lot of my skills from all that parlay so nicely over this.
Right.
And I was in a trailer park over on a bad area of town. And I go walking up, and there's like 3 or 4 cars that are all on blocks in this trailer park in front of the trailer. And I knock on the door, and nobody's there. And English was a second language type of situation. And so a young child comes to the door, no more than 10, 12, 13, starts talking to me. Well, he lives down there in that house. And which house? The blue one down there, the blue trailer. All right. So I'm getting all this information, putting it in my app, and sending it back to the office. And I call him up. I'm like, hey, this is what happened. She's like, okay, that's fine. Just fill out the affidavit and move on. Thanks for the info.
Right.
So, when I think about your background, and I've done some of those things too in the collections world, and I've been in the world of fraud, not committing, but stopping.
Sure.
And I've done all kinds of things like that as well. And I've always said that those things always sound more sexy than they are. But when you're doing them, it's just your job. It's just kind of sometimes very monotonous.
Mm-hmm.
How much of your time is spent preparing to serve versus serving? What would you guess from doing all the research to get ready?
I've got 2 assistants that on my team, processes all my returns of service. Those are the affidavits that go back to the courts. That assistant uploads them into a system and tracks what we've got. And then I've got my main assistant who routes me out at night, does my intake, puts the packets together. So it takes that assistant probably about anywhere between an hour and a half to 4 hours a night, depending on what my caseload looks like the next day.
Wow, that kind of answers my next question, which was, is this, I know you've done lots of different things and you're pretty entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Is this your full-time job?
This is my full-time job.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, this is what I do, morning, noon, and night. Most days I'm working sun up to sundown, and then some, between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. out serving, and then I'm the night before working with my assistant to prepare my, depending on what my assistant's schedule's like. Sometimes we do it at night, sometimes we do it in the morning. We set up there, and then when I'm actually on the road out in the field, I don't want to be at a place more than 10 minutes. That's pulling my papers out, reviewing my case notes, going up to the door, making the loud knock, and walking back and preparing for my next serve.
And do you use software to determine if you've got 10 people you need to go to? Do you use software to go, here's the way I should go?
So I do have a system. I use a software system to track my serves. You get an email with the details that I put into it, tracks all the court case information, all the parties, my client, whether or not they've paid, the most important part, tracks all that. I use an Excel spreadsheet as well because I've got several different clients that come in. I've got what I call my private client side, which are attorneys that I work directly for, and then I've got my managed client side, which are third parties that I subcontract for. And they all use different various systems, so I put it on a spreadsheet, and it's able to be manipulated. I put it into a routing software, pick out, okay, these I haven't touched for a couple days. These are priorities. These are the ones I want to go to. I'll pull those out, extrapolate that data, put it into my routing software, and go from there.
So no shortage of work, basically.
Well, I've worked very hard to market myself. Doing what we did, I called up a lot of my old friends in the industry, a lot of the attorneys I know, and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. And then my assistant, she went to law school for a year, and she managed a law firm for 20. So she's the one that actually got me into this. She's a great help in finding business, and then just like I said, I do a lot of subcontract work, so that's where the main bulk of my business comes in is from my managed clients that I work with.
That got me thinking. Clearly, there's a lot of work, but do you know a lot of other process servers? I don't know. Do you run across people? Do you get things from people that couldn't get something served from somebody else? How tight is this group, or are you ships in the night? You just don't see each other, and they exist, but you don't cross paths.
Well, I've done a little bit of what I used to do back when I was a real estate agent. I focused on real estate owned properties. Those are the bank owned properties that get foreclosed upon. I would sell those for the bank, and I networked with a lot of other agents outside of my area because I wasn't a threat to them, and we would switch. I put out this really vague email once in a chat room saying, hey, if you want to switch clients, email juanvaldez75@hotmail.com. And I went from having 6 clients that I was doing REO BPO work for, REO real estate owned BPO broker price opinions. I went from 6 to over 170 in less than 3 months.
And is that your active email address? Because people are going to send things to it.
Oh, what? Yeah. I don't think I've used juanvaldez75@hotmail.com for well over 15 years.
Well, the guy who owns it now is going to be pissed.
Yeah. What do you mean you want me to serve this person?
I don't understand what you want.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you giving us a lot of detail about this because honestly, it's something that I didn't know a lot about, and you've cleared up a lot of that for me, Rocky. I guess I would just ask now, Chris, as we wind up, what have we learned today?
Sure. I learned that if you're served while you're mowing, you can't run over the papers and say you were never served. You were still served.
Amen.
Yeah, I would still try that. I learned that once they knock, it's best to just answer the damn door because it sounds like it's just going to be an exercise in futility on your part. And trust me, I've got a couple dogs at my house. I don't want to hear them bark any more than they do.
I'm going to write an affidavit to the court saying that, I believe you were there and you were purposely avoiding, and it just doesn't look good for you in the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you very much for being here today. This wraps up today's episode. For Chris Kiernan and Rocky, this is Scott McLaughlin saying we'll see you at work.
Thank you for listening to the Not in the Job Description podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know by sending us an email with a brief description of your story to stories@notinthejob.com.